Welcome to my follow-up video for my guide of Trial of Chaos. So I have a few kind of points to address today, as well as offer you a perspective of passing Trial of Chaos on a slightly less OP build of SRS or Raging Spirits Summoner Witch. If this is your cup of tea, I always appreciate your support, little likes, comments below. You don't have to agree with me. A lot of people helped as opposed to trolled and added actually some of their own insights. I encourage that in this video as much as I encouraged it in the previous one. So let's go through the points very quickly before we talk about specifics of how the witch feels in this trial as opposed to Ice Strike Monk. First of all, a lot of you tried to criticize me on the fact that my guide is useless because it shows basics for real beginners and I'm using an OP build. I already addressed it in the other video about those builds where I tried to respond by helping you further, and first of all by clarifying yet again that all of my videos are for beginners and casuals. End of the story. If you're an expert, I welcome you here for additions, for contribution, but do not even try to come at me that my guides are too basic. They are designed to be basic. Also, as far as OP builds are concerned, the game is disbalanced. I will say it for the last time. And playing a non-OP build right now in beta is simply pointless and masochistic. You can choose to do that, but only if you don't come at me then and criticize me. Criticize your own build, mate. Or just accept the fact that you made your life harder. End of the story. Now, extra points to add that I feel like I owe you to add about the Trial of Chaos. Kind of expand a little bit more, and I didn't do a particularly good job in a bit of a jumbled video previously. Guilty as charged, standing corrected. Rooms are not always the same. It was pretty obvious to me, but I didn't make it explicit, so let me make it explicit. Every time you visit, rooms change. There are a few rooms, I think there are 3, and then there is a boss. So first room is always kill them all, so you just kill them, try to kill them all, yeah, without getting killed. Second room can already vary, there is randomness to it. I've seen some rooms that are time trials, simply survive a minute and a half, I think, if I'm not mistaken, while monsters progressively harder and harder waves of monsters are going to spawn around. So I recommend that you stay on the outskirts of the arena, even though mobs can spawn on the outskirts as well. But generally, I think staying in the center gives you more tactical disadvantage, where you might get surrounded by the monsters you do not see. So I prefer to obviously have a little bit of room to go left and right. I'm not going to corner myself, but at the same time staying on the edges of the room and constantly staying on the move is very advantageous, especially if you're not an Ice Strike Monk or any other melee character. For ranged, I'm talking about ranged class right now, sort of slowly starting to go towards my impressions of how the Witch felt in this trial as opposed to Ice Strike Monk. Then there is also Escort the Statue, another new trial that I haven't seen my first time, obviously, and I haven't spoken about it in the previous video. Escort the Statue is actually not too bad. I actually quite enjoyed it, almost. I would say I almost enjoyed it. The trial where you need to stay as close as possible to that statue that lifts itself up in the air and slowly moves itself through the space. The issue with that is the fact that it's a stop-and-go trial, so basically if you cannot confidently kill the mobs by staying close to the statue all the time, you would have to leave the proximity and it will stop flying. It will stop progressing. So you will deal with the mobs, come close to the statue, it will fly a little bit forward again, you again start moving around. So it's a so-so kind of trial, not too bad. I actually quite enjoyed that. What else? Some of you said that the stone altars, where you need to find the soul cores to power those altars, 3 altars before the exit opens, is not too bad of a room. I still think it's probably the worst room. It's probably the worst design. And like I said in the previous part of the guide, where I tried to give you a good helpful tip, I'm sorry if it was not good enough for you personally, basically do not try to find those soul cores in the same area. Understand that there are elevators, understand that you have to explore everything, and that I guess is a short recommendation here, so that is something that you need to be ready to do, and therefore you will progress. Okay, now once again, as far as the types of trial are concerned, types of those ailments, types of things that you deal with, like I said in the previous one, I still will follow up and I'll reinforce the fact that just choose something that doesn't do permanent damage to you or doesn't gimp you in a very permanent way, such as you have a lot less resistances, such as monsters are twice as strong, such as those kind of things. Especially if you know that you're going into a room, the final room, where the boss is. So during that time, you still are choosing an ailment, and at that point in time, choosing an ailment that, for example, gives you less resistances and gives more damage to the boss, like mate. Needless to say, I would not take that. My favorite ones, the least painful ones, remain the Stormcaller runes, the ones that I think are the easiest to avoid personally. Unless, and this is another insight into Summon a Witch, specifically Raging Spirits, the one that is based on throwing a lot of flame walls around, with a lot of flame on the ground, which was not the case for the monk, as you can imagine. With a lot of flame on the ground, I find it harder to see the terrain, harder to see anything that's telegraphed, harder to see because the fire is everywhere, not to mention Raging Spirits are flying everywhere. So please be aware that while the build is pretty good, and I'm going to talk to you a lot more in the subsequent videos, I'm going to specifically compare it to Ice Strike Monk, also build to build, not just in the context of this trial. But I can tell you that it comes with disadvantages such as not seeing where you're standing, which is hard. Final point I'd like to make is that bosses also change. The final boss also changes. The very first one that I demonstrated to you was this birdie boss that basically spent the whole time simply frozen. Firstly, because the Ice Strike Monk is an OP build and still is an OP build in my humble opinion, as I said in the previous video. But also, I think it's the easiest one. I think it's the easiest. The birdie boss is the easiest one. I've tried a few more times, and I died, by the way, in one of the trials. I didn't pass on the Witch when I was preparing this video and when I was doing a little bit more. But I can tell you that bosses are also, some of them are harder. There is one whose name I forgot right now, but I probably will overlay him on the screen right now for you separately. It's the one that periodically disappears kind of stuff. It like flies away and you have to sort of find him again around these multiple platforms. The issue with that boss that I found at least is that because our builds at this stage in Path of Exile 2 are not that tanky, they are dishing out quite a lot of damage. Ice Strike Monk, Witch, doesn't matter. Like all of them are, most of them, the ones that are functioning properly. But defensive layers are admittedly insufficient at this stage. That's why if that boss plonks onto you from the sky, disappears and then just like lands, boom, onto you, you're dead. You're essentially dead. So now a little bit more kind of moving towards my advice, especially for Summon a Witch, especially for slightly less defensive, even less defensive than Ice Strike Monk. Remember this. Yes, you have minions that do your dirty work. Yes, you should be following a guide that would help you not have a meme or gimped build. Otherwise, you simply cannot criticize my or any other guides because you are choosing to make it harder for yourself. You're inventing a harder potentially path for yourself by having a build that's not OP. It's your choice, mate. However, you are making your life harder. End of the story, okay? And all I have to say here is that for a witch, that does not keep things frozen. Because biggest advantage of Ice Strike Monk is not just the dishing out of the damage, it's not just the speed of attacks, it's the fact that stuff is disabled. A lot of stuff is disabled, everything stays frozen, right? Most of the time. That's the biggest advantage. Witch doesn't have it. It has an advantage, of course, of the minions doing your dirty work, so you can stay away, even, so consider this. Things like escorting the statue, for example, that trial, yeah, and with the bosses as well. You have to keep the fires burning all the time. Keep them burning all the time, not just when you see an active enemy present in your vicinity. You don't need them to be present to have the fires burning. Do you know what I'm saying? You have to always have the fires burning. Even if your raging spirits are like, well, what am I doing here? Why am I summoned? I'm raging, yeah? It doesn't matter, mate. Keep them burning. So your benefit is that your raging spirits, your minions, your arsonists, they will find the targets for you. So you kind of delegated to them to deal with the problems. Just stay alive. That's all you need to do. Stay alive. Sometimes it's hard. While so that's one massive advantage compared to, say, Monk. However, Monk's advantage is that, yes, Monk is doing everything by themselves with their own hands. Yeah, quite literally. But at the same time, Monk is front and center of both the damage, because they are at the epicenter of what's happening. And they also can be one-shot, a Monk. But stuff stays frozen. So take your poison, take your pick in this particular case. So biggest advice I can give you on the Witch is be aware of the fact that flames are covering the ground and you don't see what's on it, so pay particular attention to where you're stepping. Secondly, stay as far away as possible. It's obvious it's a ranged class and it's a squishy class, but minions are extremely powerful if you're building and supporting your key gems correctly and all that kind of stuff. Your minions are gonna eat everything. You just need to survive. And with the bosses that fly away, disappear, yeah, they are prolonging their existence. It's not just like quick wham bam and they're dead. It's not like that. So as a witch, it's slower. I found it slower. People say that, oh my, in Trial of Sekemas maybe, because the boss stays put and the minions just swarm them and they kill them pretty quickly. I'm not even talking about that. But in Trial of Chaos, it's a little more tricky. So you simply need to have realistic expectations, is what I'm suggesting to you. That's it. That's all I wanted to follow up on. I appreciate your feedback. I appreciate your support and interest in my videos and in these things. Just don't tell me that they are too basic, my guides or whatever. They're intended to be basic because a lot of people are struggling to get into Path of Exile. So get off your high horse, I'm saying for the last time, and just level with people who are less experienced or even simply have less time to play and explore the game than you are. This is who these guides are for. Once again, I welcome everyone in my club in early 2025. More content, a lot more content is coming. My intention is to explore different builds, variety of builds. I'm not someone who plays one dedicated build, one dedicated character until level 100 or whatever. I'm going to go broad before I ever go deep. That's how I play. If this is your play, give me a quick like. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'll talk to you next time about something else Path of Exile related. Goodbye for now.